Last time we were just about to begin our look at the next to last topic on the course, and that is gratitude. And so we'll begin that today. Now, we can think of gratitude in a number of different ways. We can think of gratitude as a feeling, an emotion, an affect, and described as an acute, intense, and relatively brief psychophysiological reaction to being the recipient of a benefit from someone else. We can also think of it as a characteristic of the individual rather than as an emotional experience had by the individual. We can think of it as a character trait. There are individuals who are much more likely to experience and express gratitude than others. They have higher versus lower levels of trait gratitude. In most religious and philosophical traditions, gratitude is also seen as a virtuous act, as in some cases, a moral imperative at the most, but certainly as a moral virtue, as something one should do, one should feel towards others around you. And we can also think of gratitude as a behavior pattern, as a habit, as something that regularly occurs in our life and which we express to others. So there are a number of different ways we can think of gratitude conceptually, and we don't have to choose one versus the other. They can all be part of our conceptualization of what gratitude represents or is. In the broadest sense of the word, gratitude can be the way we live our lives. We can be constantly aware of the good things that our life has provided to us and that others have done for us, and have that feeling fairly consistently. Now, evolutionary psychologists, and of course they are becoming a very much more important part of psychological thinking these days, would argue that like every other human tendency, like every other psychological characteristic that we exhibit, gratitude exists because it has evolved over the millennia, because of its survival value. Gratitude, according to this view, helps us get along in the world, helps us be more successful in passing on the genes that give rise to gratitude. So we can take an evolutionary perspective on gratitude as well. And we might very well ask then, what is it that gratitude does for the individual, and how does it contribute to his or her reproductive success and survival? Well, perhaps the most important aspect of this excuse me, has to do with pro-social behavior. Obviously pro-social behavior is the opposite of anti-social behavior, and it is behavior which contributes to the well-being or good of those around us and contributes to their ability to succeed and so on and so forth. And it's easy to understand the importance of this function, evolutionarily speaking, of gratitude in our species, because we are, as many people have noted, the most social of all animal species. There are no other species on the planet, not even the social insects, who are more dependent on, for our existence, the relationships we have with others around us. We have always congregated in groups. We've never been a social species, ever. One of the strangest forms of human existence is that of the hermit, someone who lives apart from other people. It's given a special name because it's such an unusual form of existence for us, because we are social animals very strongly. And of course, one way in which our living in social groups can be assisted is by the experience of gratitude for what others are doing or have done for us to contribute to our well-being and survival and so on and so forth. So one of the things it does is it promotes pro-social behavior in those individuals who experience gratitude. It leads us to want to do good things for others. It also If we're already engaged in pro-social behavior, it provides the energy for continuing to show those pro-social positive behaviors towards others. And finally, it's also, on the other side of the coin, it reduces the tendency for us to engage in antisocial or destructive behavior. When you're feeling grateful to others for what they have done for you, it's difficult to imagine simultaneously feeling as though you should do harm to anyone or anything. Right? And all of these characteristics, of course, contribute to the success not only of the individual who experiences gratitude, but of the group to whom, or the individuals to whom, gratitude is expressed by a grateful individual. So it clearly has, we can imagine, though we can't trace, of course, the evolution of gratitude across the millions of years, but nevertheless, it clearly seems to have an obvious survival function for individuals and, in fact, for the species as a whole. Now, we can also see gratitude as serving very specific functions apart from its general evolutionary significance. One of those is as an alert system. That is, when we are experiencing gratitude, we don't have to consciously think about what others have done in order to experience gratitude. We sort of know intuitively, don't we? Someone does something nice for us, and without our thinking about it at all, we experience a sense of gratitude. And so what that sense of gratitude does is alert us to the fact, if we needed alerting, that someone has done something for us, that we have received a benefit from someone else. So it's a detecting system, a barometer, you might say, for the receipt of positive experiences from others. It's also, as I've indicated, a motivational feeling as well, or characteristic. That is, it leads us to want to engage in and to actually engage in pro-social behavior towards others, as a reciprocation for the pro-social behavior that they or someone else has devoted towards us. Right? There's a commercial, hasn't been around for a while. I haven't seen it for a while. That shows that people passing on positive behaviors. It begins with an individual, I think, who's blind, who's assisted in a bus depot or a train terminal, and is observed being assisted by someone waiting for a train themselves. As a result of having seen that pro-social behavior on the part of someone else, the person waiting and watching engages in pro-social behavior at the first opportunity he has. That pro-social behavior is observed by someone else in turn, who then goes on to engage in pro-social behavior herself, and so on. So they're passing it forward. It motivates us, being grateful or seeing others, in fact, engage in pro-social behavior motivates us to engage in pro-social behavior as well. It also has the function for those who have engaged in pro-social behavior, who've done something positive for us or for others. It rewards them for having done so. Being told that someone is grateful for what they have done for you is a reward, a social reward for having engaged in that pro-social behavior. And of course, we know how reward works. It increases the frequency and of the behavior that's rewarded. And so when we are rewarded for pro-social behavior by the expressed gratitude of others, excuse me. It increases the probability that we will engage in future pro-social behavior towards others as well. So it has a number of very broad species-specific functions, and it also has very down-to-earth functions in terms of serving as a reinforcer, an alerting system, and so on and so forth. Any questions so far, by the way, or comments? Okay. Now, as I said, we can think of gratitude in a number of ways. We can conceptualize it as a number of different things. One of those is as an emotion, as an affective trait. And individuals who possess that trait, that characteristic of high levels of gratitude, exhibit the following characteristics. First of all, they more frequently experience a sense of gratitude for what others have done for them or contributed to their lives. They also, or in addition, feel higher levels, more intense experiences of gratitude than other individuals who lack this trait to the same degree. They also exhibit generalization. That is, they feel gratitude in a wider variety of circumstances and situations than others who are low in this affective trait do. And finally, they tend to see more people as involved in having done positive things for them, have been involved in the pro-social experiences that they have. We get an example of that every time we listen to an entertainment award show. The Oscars are, of course, the best example of this. The individuals get up having received the Oscar for whatever the category happens to be, and the first thing they do is express gratitude. Right? I'd like to thank, and there's a lengthy list of individuals they want to thank. Their parents, their agents, the producers, the director, their fellow cast members. It goes on and on. And that serves a very positive function for the individuals who were contributing to them, and also probably for the individual who expresses gratitude as well. Motivates them to, as I said, pass on those pro-social behaviors to other recipients, other individuals. As always, when we want to study a psychological phenomenon, we have to have instruments that assess or measure the extent to which individuals possess or feel or show that psychological characteristic. And of course, gratitude is no exception to that. We need instruments that allow us to assess, especially trait gratitude. Now, we've made the distinction before. We'll make it again, but not so strongly here, between state and trait variables. Trait variables are the long-term average levels of some characteristic that an individual shows, whether it's optimism or gratitude or anything else. Right? There's an average level to which the individual exhibits this characteristic. State, excuse me. State characteristics are fluctuations around the average. They are the current state of the individual with respect to that particular characteristic. It can be higher and sometimes lower than at others, but it always fluctuates around that long-term trait average. And so we see a number of different assessment tools for measuring specifically trait gratitude in individuals. One of those tools, I want to show you two, the two most frequently used. The first one I want to mention is the so-called GR6, or GQ6, the gratitude questionnaire. It's called GQ6 because it involves 6 statements to which individuals agree or disagree to varying degrees. It's the product of a researcher named McCullough. We'll run across McCullough on a number of occasions here. So let me show you the statements with which that are contained on the GQ6. I have so much in life to be thankful for. And again, it's a strongly agree to strongly disagree. A Likert measure. If I had to list everything that I felt grateful for, it would be a very long list. When I look at the world, I don't see much to be grateful for. Whenever possible in these assessment instruments, you want to look at both sides of the equation. Statements that reflect low levels of the trait, statements that reflect high levels of the trait, and this, of course, reflects a low level. I am grateful to a wide array of people. As I age, I find myself more able to appreciate people, events, and situations that have been a part of my life. And finally, long amounts of time can go by before I feel grateful to something or someone. So that's the GQ6. Now, research into gratitude, which has been increasing over the last 10 or 15 or 20 years, It goes way back, but nevertheless, it's thanks to the prominence now of positive psychological thinking, research on characteristics like gratitude and forgiveness, which will be our last characteristic, have increased in frequency and volume over the last little while. But one of the main thrusts of this literature, especially the literature that uses the GQ6, is that it looks to see what is related to the scores that individuals achieve on the GQ6. I don't know why I keep saying GS, gratitude survey. Anyway, so if we look at the other variables that are correlated with GQ6 scores, we see the following. First of all, GQ6 scores, which are, of course, self-report scores, right? The individual is telling you what they believe to be the case with respect to their trait levels of gratitude. Those scores are highly correlated with observer ratings of that same person's gratitude. So friends and relations are asked essentially, to what extent would you say these statements are true of person X, whoever person X happens to be? And then we look at what person X actually scored on the GQ6, and we find that there's a significant correlation. People tend to see the same degree of gratitude being expressed as the individual, him or herself, reports experiencing. Positive affect. Now, we've come across this over and over and over and over again as a correlate of a number of different characteristics that we've studied, and gratitude is no exception. Individuals who report themselves to be high in gratitude, as on the GQ6, also report themselves to have high levels of positive affect, happiness, contentment, joy, whatever it happens to be. Okay? And subjective well-being. Of course, this has been one of our primary focuses in looking at happiness and life satisfaction. And again, we see that individuals who are high in gratitude also report themselves to be higher in subjective well-being than individuals whose level of self-reported gratitude is lower. Right? And of course, pro-social behavior. Individuals who report themselves to experience more or more frequent or more intense gratitude, according to the GQ6, also report themselves, and I might add, are reported by others, to engage in more pro-social behavior towards other individuals. They do more things to benefit and improve the lives of others. Religiousness and spirituality, which we saw as one of the prime sources of meaning in individuals' life, is also higher in individuals who self-report higher levels of trait gratitude on the GQ6. Now here, it's less clear what the nature of this correlation means. Does it mean that being more grateful makes you more religious or more spiritual? Or, and most people would assume this is the case, that being religious or spiritual or adhering strongly to some faith leads you to be more grateful for the things that you have received or what life has given you and done for you and so on. We also see lower levels of envy. Now, envy is an emotion essentially reflective of our desire to possess the things or characteristics or qualities that someone else has. Right? To be envious of someone is to wish that we were or had whatever it is that they are or have, and so on and so forth. It's different from jealousy. Jealousy is partly like envy in the sense that it reflects our desire to be or have something that someone else has, but jealousy also reflects an additional component which says that person shouldn't have what they have. I should. Right? So it's partly a negative emotion against an individual possessing what they do have and what we don't. Envy is different. It's much more positive in the sense that I would like to have what Bill or Sally has, without necessarily feeling that Sally or Bill don't deserve what they have. So we don't have a jealousy component in envy. Low materialism. We've talked about materialism in several contexts, especially when we're talking about the role of wealth and money and so on in subjective well-being. And we've seen that the literature studying the effects of materialism is very consistent. And what it shows is, in general, that materialism leads to more often negative emotional and psychological states rather than positive ones. It leads us to be more concerned with things and possessions. That's the whole notion of materialism, material things, and less concerned with individual self-development and projects that go beyond the needs of the individual and so on. So materialism, we even though ours is a strongly materialistic culture, is seen in terms of mental health as a negative. Strong high levels of materialism are associated in general with more negative psychological states. And what we see in this case is that individuals reporting high levels of gratitude are more likely to report low levels of materialism compared with individuals who report lower levels of gratitude. And finally, the one personality variable on this list at least, extroversion. Individuals who are high in extroversion tend also to be higher in self-reported gratitude compared with those who are more introverted. Right? And again, part of that may have to do with the fact that individuals who are more extroverted spend more time in and are more dependent on social situations for whatever reason. We've talked about a number of possible reasons for that, but nevertheless. And so, of course, gratitude is predominantly a social emotion, a social trait, about our relationship with, feelings towards others. And extroverts tend to be much more involved in their relationships with others compared with introverts. All right, any questions or comments about any of this then? Okay. Oh, a couple more, I forgot. Agreeableness and neuroticism. Now again, agreeableness and neuroticism, like extroversion, come from a number of different personality theories that we talked about. With respect to agreeableness, we see it as primarily in the Big Five factor theory. And it's not surprising, I think, that we find that individuals who express high levels of trait gratitude on the GQ6 also score high on measures of agreeableness, the second factor in the Big Five. They also score low on neuroticism as one of the Big Five. Again, something we also might expect to be the case. So high levels of experienced expressed trait gratitude are associated with low levels of self-reported neuroticism as measured by instruments that deal with the Big Five. Okay. Now, so that's one of the two assessment tools I wanted to talk to you about. It's one of the most commonly used because it's very easy to do, right? It's only 6 items, takes 5 minutes at most, even if you're slow. There's a second, much more detailed and somewhat lengthier assessment tool called the GRAT, the Gratitude, Resentment, and Appreciation Test. And the name of the test tells you essentially what the things are that it is assessing. Gratitude primarily, but also the presence or lack of resentment for things we don't have or that others have, and general appreciation for the good things in life, the GRAT. And we can see in the items on the GRAT, there are about 44 items rather, we can see in these items 3 different kinds of gratitude being assessed. The first is something called abundance, and it reflects our belief that we have enough of our share of the good things in life generally. Right? The second is simple appreciation. This reflects an individual's awareness and gratitude for the simple pleasures of life. Beautiful sunsets, friends we can trust and rely on, and so on. Very simple, basic pleasures. And finally, more specific, those basic pleasures can include things that are not human as well. They can include the natural environment. Appreciation of others is much more specifically a set of items that reflect the extent to which we are grateful to others for the positive things they bring into and have contributed to our lives. So general abundance, do we have enough of the good things of life, whether they're people-generated or naturally generated? A simple appreciation, do we value smelling the roses and having an appreciation of generally of things? And finally, the sense in which we normally talk about gratitude, and that is gratitude towards others. Again, most of the work on gratitude has looked at gratitude directed towards other people, other individuals, other groups, human groups. But again, gratitude can be directed towards non-human elements in our lives, towards the natural world, towards the divine world, towards God, whatever you want to say about it, right? We can also feel gratitude towards those things as well, which are not, of course, by definition, not human-generated sources of gratitude. And again, on the GRAD, we have a number of statements, 44 statements, and the individual simply responds to them on a 9-point Likert scale in this case. That's a large one, ranging from strongly agree to strongly disagree. Again, I want to show you some of the items that fit under each of these characteristics. All right, so abundance of the 44 items, 17 are ticketed towards looking at our attitude towards whether or not we possess enough good stuff in the world. So statements like, there never seems to be enough to go around, and I'm always coming up short. I really don't think that I've gotten all the good things that I deserve in life. Simple appreciation, 14 items. I think that it's important to stop and smell the roses. I think it's important to enjoy the simple things in life. And finally, 13 items on appreciation of others. I feel deeply appreciative for the things others have done for me in my life. And I couldn't have gotten where I am today without the help of many people. And again, as I said, this is something we hear expressed by award winners in a number of different categories, a number of different shows. I mentioned the Oscars in particular. You can see it in the Emmys. You can see it on the music awards, wherever you go. People expressing gratitude for others for the things they have contributed to their lives. I want to give you some more. Well, I'll come back to that. If we look at the way the items on the GRAT view gratitude, we can see that there are a number of characteristics of the GRAT in terms of how it conceptualizes gratitude. First of all, it sees gratitude as the importance of acknowledging and experiencing and expressing gratitude to either people or the natural world in general. Another aspect of what the GRAT is looking at is the absence, the lack of resentment for the things one has, or one can also resent others for what things they have done for you, in the sense that now I owe them, right? They've done something nice for me. Now I am expected to do something nice for them. So rather than experiencing gratitude, you could experience resentment. They now own me in a certain sense. They have a call on my services because I owe them that because of what they've done for me. And it also reflects a recognition and appreciation of the benefits to one's own life generated by other people. And finally, under simple appreciation, an appreciation of the very, very simple, basic things of life that we experience, most of us experience every single day or very frequently, and very often let go by without any sense of, this is really wonderful, and I'm thankful of having the life in which this particular experience is a part. I wanted to mention, I know I did this in personality. I remember one of the most striking stories about gratitude that I remember from years past was when I was teaching, I think it was in personality, I was teaching an evening course in personality, and because it was an evening course, there were a lot of mature students present in the class. And I was teaching one of the humanist lecture content. I think it was Maslow, but I'm not positive. It could have been Rogers. And a gentleman who at the time was older than me, probably in his late 50s, he would now be younger than me, came up after class, and we're talking about appreciation, again, from the self-actualized individual. And he said, I know exactly what you're talking about here. And aliveness was another one of the characteristics we talked about there. He said that several years ago, I experienced something which I now consider to be the most positive thing that has happened to me in my entire life. And I was waiting to hear, the marriage, birth of a child, won the lottery, what was it? And the answer was, the thing he considered to be the most positive thing in his life up to this point was a nearly fatal heart attack. And of course, this would not be on my list of things that I had contributed positively to my life, but it was on his. And so he went on to expand on this because, of course, he recognized how unusual it sounded. And he said, I woke up the next day, after I got out of the hospital, I guess, a few days later, and I realized that I should have been dead. The medical team had done a wonderful job of bringing me back to life, and my treatment team was helping me stay alive. And so I had the continued experience of gratitude for every single minute of my life following that heart attack. Every morning I wake up, every time I see my children's faces, every time the sun shines, I'm grateful. Because I know it's extra time that I shouldn't have had. And because it's contributed so dramatically to my enjoyment of life, that's why he considered it to be the best thing that ever happened to him. It changed his entire outlook on his life. It wasn't any different in terms of the daily details that he went through, right? The good, the bad, and so on and so forth. But he felt differently about it, right? He had a very different appreciation for what it meant to be alive and to have these experiences. It's quite a dramatic story. Anyway, okay. Any comments or questions about any of this? Okie dokie. All right, I wanted to show you a few more items from the GRAT, from each of these three categories: abundance, simple pleasures, simple appreciation, and appreciation of others. So abundance. For some reason, I never seem to get the breaks that others get. More bad things have happened to me in my life than I deserve. Because of what I've gone through in life, I really feel like the world owes me something. I believe that I'm a very fortunate person. All right, so we can see both positive and negative sides of abundance here. If we look at simple appreciation, oftentimes I have been overwhelmed at the beauty of nature. I really enjoy a crackling fire on a cold winter's day. I think it's important to sit down every once in a while and count your blessings. The simple pleasures of life are the best pleasures of life. And finally, appreciation of others. I feel deeply appreciative for the things that others have done for me in my life. I showed you that one already. I couldn't have gotten where I am today without the help of many people. I'm really thankful for friends and family. And finally, part of really enjoying something good is being thankful for that thing. Right? So these are some of the 44 items on the GRAT, tapping into each of these three concepts: gratitude, resentment, appreciation for others, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, just as I showed you the variables that are correlated with the GQ6, the Gratitude Questionnaire 6, I want to show you the same results for the GRAT. Different literature, individuals, researchers who use the GQ6 don't use the GRAT, and vice versa. Now, we would expect, of course, the list to contain many similar items, because in theory, of course, we're measuring the same thing, the same trait variable, gratitude. So we talked, when we were talking about happiness, we talked about the Diener's satisfaction with life scale, those very simple items. And the correlation between scores on the GRAT and the satisfaction with life scale range typically in the literature between 0.5 and 0.6. That's a very high correlation. Clearly, there's a very strong relationship between our satisfaction with our subjective well-being and the extent to which we are capable of and actually do experience gratitude. On the other side of the coin, And we've seen things like this before. GRAT scores are negatively correlated with one of the most common assessment tools for depression, the Beck Depression Inventory. Aaron Beck, who developed this inventory, is the guy for the cognitive behavioral treatment of depression. He wrote the book. He's the guru. And so this is mostly about the behaviors and emotions that are associated with depression. And it's one of the most standard ways of assessing the degree to which an individual is depressed. The correlations there range between about minus 3.35 to almost minus 6. Again, fairly strong negative correlations, indicating that individuals who score highly on the GRAT are very unlikely to show the symptoms of depression as they are manifested through the items on the Beck Depression Inventory, or BDI. Now, first of all, any questions or comments here at all? Okay. Now, as we've done before with most of the affective and other trait variables that we've talked about, we want to take a look at how they impact other aspects of our life. What is it that gratitude does for us? Or let me put it a better way. What is it that gratitude is associated with? We've talked about it in general terms, the GRAT and the GQ6. I want to talk about some more specific aspects of the correlations or relationships between gratitude and life states. One of the, and we've seen this with respect to optimism and so on. There is a clear relationship between gratitude, as expressed either on the GQ6 or the GRAT, and the quality and satisfaction that individuals have in the personal relationships they have, especially spousal relationships, intimate relationships. So a study by Gordon and his colleagues in 2012 looked at the relationship between the appreciation that in either partner in a relationship felt towards the other partner, and how that related to the quality of their relationship in general. And what they found was that individuals who are more grateful to, more appreciative of, grateful to their partner, then that partner is more likely to be grateful and appreciative of the relationship itself, more likely to engage in relationship-maintaining behaviors, more likely to be committed to the relationship, and so on. So if you, as a member of a committed couple, are expressing gratitude frequently to your partner, that's going to impact your partner's behavior with respect to the relationship. Motivate him or her to be more solicitous of you and to be more likely to engage in relationship-maintaining, sustaining behaviors, and so on. Okay. Again, Gordon, this time from a study published a year earlier, looking at long-term couples. The initial study that I just mentioned to you was individuals who were in a monogamous relationship, and it didn't necessarily have to have been a long-term one, and I don't think it necessarily had to be a marital relationship. In this particular previous study, in 2011, it was long-term married couples, and looking again at the relationship between gratitude and marital satisfaction. Whoops, come on, you. Yeah, okay. And what they found was that, and there's an interesting finding in here that I always find a little spooky. First of all, overall, they looked at two kinds of gratitude. First of all, the gratitude that the partner felt internally towards their partner, right? Secondly, the gratitude the partner had expressed towards the partner. So, I mean, you can feel gratitude without expressing it. You can feel grateful but not say anything to your partner about how grateful you are, and so on and so forth. So there's felt gratitude inside. There's expressed gratitude that manifests itself in behavior towards the other. And both of those things predicted marital satisfaction. High levels of felt gratitude predicted high levels of marital satisfaction as reported by each member of the couple, and high levels of expressed gratitude also predicted one's own level of marital satisfaction. Now, then they looked at how does individual A, the one partner, how does their gratitude affect the marital satisfaction of the partner? We've seen that it affects their marital satisfaction. High levels of both. Expressed gratitude and felt gratitude predict an individual's satisfaction with their relationship with someone else. But what about the other person's feelings about the relationship? How are they associated with the expressed or felt gratitude of their partner? And here's where we get to the interesting result. First of all, they found that felt gratitude, the amount of gratitude that partner A felt themselves to owe towards the partner, predicted their partner's marital satisfaction. Right? All right, I hope that it's all, I'm using the word partner too much, but anyway. But here's the interesting finding. Not the one I would have expected. When they looked at expressed gratitude, the extent to which partner A actually expresses gratitude towards partner B, that expressed gratitude did not correlate with the marital satisfaction of partner B. This is an interesting one. I would have predicted exactly the other way around. That if you feel gratitude, it's not going to predict your partner's marital satisfaction because you haven't expressed it. You express gratitude, then that should predict your partner's marital satisfaction because you've expressed the gratitude. Exactly the opposite was found here. What you feel but don't necessarily express, that predicts your partner's marital satisfaction. What you express does not. I don't know. Now, I suspect that one reason, maybe the main reason for this, at least the relationship between felt gratitude and partner's marital satisfaction, is that even though you may not express gratitude, you will nevertheless behave towards your partner, if you're feeling gratitude, in ways that will sustain or maintain or strengthen the relationship. And that should improve the marital satisfaction of your partner. So even though it's not the expressed gratitude that shows up as the factor, something you're doing, presumably as a result of feeling gratitude towards your partner, is influencing your partner's marital satisfaction. At least that's the assumption. The studies don't allow us to tease out that particular relationship and figure out why it happens as it does. All right, any questions or comments about any of that? Yeah. Can it? Yes, they have been, and we'll talk about some, not so much, I don't know whether I'd call them programs, but activities designed to stimulate or remind us of things. Yes, and we'll talk about several of those as we get to the end of this discussion for sure, yeah. Any other questions or comments? All right, this is a study, again, 2011, 4-year longitudinal study. This is a very long study, looking at the relationship between relationship maintenance and gratitude, again, in married couples. And they found that, first of all, and again, none of these will be surprising, I don't think. They found that gratitude towards a partner was based on the extent to which you perceive your partner to be contributing positively to the relationship. And you're grateful for that. So your gratitude is based on the extent to which you see relationship-maintaining behaviors on the part of your partners. And again, we talked about gratitude having a rewarding function. It rewards the individual for engaging in pro-social behavior, and we see that here. The amount of relationship-maintaining behavior that any partner engaged in was associated positively with the amount of gratitude expressed by the other partner for that behavior, right? So if your partner feels grateful to you for relationship-maintaining behavior, you are more likely to continue to engage in relationship-maintaining behavior. Again, no big surprise there as well. Study by Algo et al. In 2010. Gratitude, looking again at cohabiting couples, not married couples, and looking at gratitude and indebtedness. And they found that thoughtful behavior, now what's indebtedness? Indebtedness is not quite resentment, but it's the sense I owe my partner something because he or she has engaged in these relationship-maintaining behaviors and has shown gratitude to me. So thoughtful behaviors, pro-social behaviors, pro-relationship behaviors, were found to motivate two feelings. First of all, gratitude. Thank you very much for what you've done, even if you don't express it. But also indebtedness. I owe you for what you have done. And gratitude predicted increased relationship connection and satisfaction the day following its expression. So it has a very immediate effect. Individuals almost immediately express increased satisfaction with their marriage to the extent that they have, that someone has expressed gratitude for what they have done. Okay, so we see this is a very strong gratitude-strengthening relationship in general. I'm sorry, relationship strengthening characteristic. Okay, well, yeah, we'll do this, I guess, one more time. All right, now we talked about the motivation and the maintenance of pro-social behaviors, two of the major functions of gratitude. It leads us to want to continue doing the sorts of pro-social things that we might have been doing. It also leads us to engage in more pro-social behavior and increasing the amount of pro-social activities that we engage in, whether towards a partner or towards people in the world at large. And one of the largest components of the literature on gratitude is specifically about its relationship to pro-social behavior. To what extent and to what degree and under what circumstances does the expression or feeling of gratitude lead us to engage in more or more intense or more broadly distributed pro-social behavior? And in some of this literature, rather than using things like the GQ6 or the GRAT to assess current trait levels of gratitude, what they very often do is try to manipulate an individual's level of gratitude, make them more aware of the things for which they should or might actually do already feel gratitude. So one of the manipulations that's very common in this literature, we'll see it in several different studies, is to have people write down a little essay or list of things for which they are or should be grateful. Right? A benefits list or a gratitude list. What are the 9 or 10 things in your life for which you feel or should feel most grateful? And of course, you need a control group to compare the effects of that on. And typically, there are two different kinds of control group. One is a control group that doesn't write about anything. They just go through the manipulation. A second kind of control group is a group that writes about any sort of event, whatever that happened in your life in the last 2 or 3 weeks. List 9 or 10 things of significance that happened to you in the last 2 or 3 weeks. They could be positive, they could be negative. So general events. And the last control group, which is often included, is the so-called hassles control group. List 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 problems that you faced in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Things that didn't go well, hassles that you had to deal with, roadblocks put in your way, and so on and so forth. And having manipulated that by having the individual write about those things, they then look at some behavioral characteristics that follow that and see whether or not people who are high in gratitude, who've written the gratitude list, are more likely to engage in pro-social behavior under experimental circumstances than those who did not. Okay, and again, what they found in this particular study, Grant and Gino, that written expressions of gratitude motivate pro-social behavior in helpers. All right? So expressions of gratitude motivate the helper to be more pro-social towards the person that they are grateful to, and also motivates them to be more pro-social to others to whom they have no reason to express gratitude. So if you're grateful to someone else and express that gratitude, it makes you more likely to engage in pro-social behavior towards that person and towards others who have done nothing positive for you necessarily. Okay? And we'll leave that here for now and finish this up next time. We'll see you next week.